and welcome back to Raw Sports YouTube channel, Raw 12:51 AM. I am your head of sport, Josh. Then back again with another Quaran-Stream. I think it's episode 4 of season 2, and a lot of stuff's going on. A lot of things are going on in the world, and of course, sport hasn't stopped either, especially football has not stopped either. So we'll be talking about Champions League and Europa League. Well, a little bit about Europa League, not a whole lot. To be honest, we'll talk a bit about the latest news, international weekend, or the international fortnight's coming up. So we've got some squad announcements to react to. And also the Premier League. A few games have already finished this weekend already. There's still some to look forward to. And we'll have a quick look back at last weekend on some of the key results. Not a huge surprise, I think, for most of these results, but certainly there was some that may raise eyebrows. But as always, a few things to plug at the start. We have all our social media stuff is in the video description down below. Please like and subscribe to the video. And yeah, especially, you know, as we head into another lockdown, we are here to provide you visual entertainment, soundtrack to your Saturday afternoons, and especially, yeah, if you want to just chat about all the latest football stuff, I'm just going to adjust my camera a bit. Then come and chat with us. Just come and hang out with us for the next 2 hours or so. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. Obviously, Wednesday we had Raw Sport Weekly. We did a bit about NFL and Formula One, which is a lot of fun. And apologies again for that. I was very sleep deprived, having been part of Raw News' successful US election coverage, which was a lot of fun. But yeah, you've got Raw Sport Weekly on Wednesday to look back on, and yeah, obviously we will be trying to finish exactly at 5, if not slightly beforehand, because of Raw's schedule launch that is happening from 5 p.m, where the new schedule for the station will be launched from week 6 to 10, which is from next week onwards. And then also how you can get involved with being part of running the station. And that includes being a deputy on the various departments, including the sports department. We're looking for someone to just assist and help out in just the general running of it, whether it might be social media, it might be on-air preparation and organization for these shows, it might be helping me out with all the interviews that we sort of do as well. So that will be more news on that will be coming out during the schedule launch in a couple of hours, and then application should then soon launch imminently. I don't know when exactly, but imminently. So with that said, plenty of stuff, and I mentioned, you know, Raw 12:51 AM. We are SRA award-winning station, and we won some SRAs last night. For those who don't know, we won gold in the diversity category, which was massive. Meaning to those who don't know, we've been recognized as one of the student radio stations that is very, very good at promoting diversity, and we were recognized with gold for that, being the top one in the country. So that's huge for us. We've obviously, as a station, as a society, we've worked very hard on facilitating that and making Raw as welcoming and friendly as possible, and to people of all backgrounds. And so, yeah, that's massive for us. And obviously, shout out to James Waterhouse, an alumni exec who won silver for best producer. Shout out to our program controller Rin Dashaba on winning the bronze for best newcomer. So we picked up a fair few awards, which is pretty exciting. So it's an exciting time to be part of Raw 12:51 AM. And let me introduce my guests now. So starting off with someone who is very heavily involved with Wednesday's election coverage, and probably now turns his attentions from the political battleground to the European football battleground, and I'm struggling to think of more election fun. So let's just end it and bring him in. Cam Hall's with me.
Hi, it's great to be back. And of course, the most important battleground we're missing is the League One FA Cup background at the moment. Yes. And I'm not going to lie, I have my local boys Portsmouth on the laptop literally next to me right now. We've literally, in the time you've done that intro, we've just gone 2-0 up against Ipswich Town through two very nice goals indeed. But yeah, it's nice to finally have some sleep again and be back on the front stream as well. Definitely good to be back.
Yeah, we've missed you having you. We've missed your presence, and yeah, like you, I was also involved in that. I think you can still watch that on Raw News's YouTube, probably their Facebook page as well. And yes, Cam will be giving us live updates of the major talking points of Portsmouth's FA Cup. The start of their journey, hopefully for a long run into the tournament as well.
We won it 13 seasons ago, so that's not to say even if we're still down in League One, we can still dream. Definitely,
there's certainly pedigree. There's certainly pedigree in this tournament. And then my other guest with me, someone you've seen. I mean, we've had him on, I think, 2 of these shows at least. But someone who's becoming a regular face to the Quaran-Stream. We've got Ben Parkinson. Ben, how are you?
Afternoon, Josh. Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. Just off of the back of a Manchester United 3-1 win against Everton, so much more positive. But I'm sure I will talk about what went on earlier this week as well.
Yeah, and actually, we can quickly break the news that there's been a goal in the one Premier League game that's going live at the moment. That is Crystal Palace versus Leeds, and it is Scott Dan who has opened the scoring for the Eagles against Leeds. There we go. We'll just update that little score update. But yes, Palace are 1-0 up against Leeds, a Leeds side that has impressed many. So it's going to be a big result, I think, for Roy Hodgson if they can hold on to that. But anyway, we are going to start with, and I'll just take this down. We're going to start with talking a bit about the Champions League. Now, we've reached the halfway mark of the group stages. Actually, this was match day 3. So now we are now at the stage where we can sort of start predicting how the group stage and who's going to go first, second, third, that kind of stuff. We can start putting that together. But we'll start with Tuesday night's action, and that should explain all the results. So a lot of high-scoring games, it's fair to say, off the bat. A lot of high-scoring games. The one of most interest, I guess, would be Atalanta 0, Liverpool 5. Looking at this, Cam, looking at Liverpool, we were wondering how vulnerable their defense. Atalanta obviously impressed many in their run in the Champions League last year. Obviously made it to, I think, the quarterfinal stage before losing to PSG. A very high scoring attacking team, and yet Liverpool pull out a performance like this. I mean, should we be surprised at that scoreline? And or was this something that they were always capable of?
They always were. I mean, you've got to remember, Liverpool weren't Premier League champions last season by a fluke. They didn't win the Champions League 2 seasons ago by a fluke. And again, we've talked about the high line, and it was a problem, I think. But after the Villa game, obviously with Aston Villa shipped 7 past them, I think there's been a lot more emphasis on the defence. And I think especially despite losing Van Dijk, not having Matip either, Liverpool, I think, have held up very well in this time. I think having Alisson back, I think, was a big boost. And when we saw the impact when Alisson joined Liverpool in terms of just giving them that extra stability at the back, and of course, hence why Liverpool won the Champions League in his first season at the club, had the best defensive record in the league last season. I think people tend to forget in all this talk about the high line, Liverpool did have the best defensive record in the Premier League last season, obviously slightly different at Europe. But yeah, I think to pull off that performance against an Atlanta team that is generally very free scoring, admittedly without some of its best players at the moment. But I think it was just a very sort of clinical Liverpool performance that we've become used to in the last couple of years. Very strong defensively, Alisson really doing his job there, but also just a fantastic attacking performance as well, really demonstrating that pressing football under Jurgen Klopp. And I think a lot of it, you can't not talk about Diego Jota after that game, who, in the absence of Roberto Firmino, has kind of stepped into this role a lot better than I think even anyone was expecting him. He knew he was good at Wolves, but he was always brought in very much as a sort of backup option, almost like Xherdan Shaqiri was being used or not used in the last couple of seasons. And he's really made a claim for himself in that team now. So it was a very clinical performance from Liverpool that may have solved some of the defensive questions, even with Van Dijk still out. But I think has opened up just a whole nother set of worms now when it comes to their attacking trio.
Yeah, it was certainly a very impressive display, like you said, from Diogo Jota, who stepped in for Roberto Firmino, who, I mean, his place is now under a lot of debate and scrutiny at the moment. Ben, it must be annoying as a Man United fan when you think Liverpool are vulnerable and you think that finally we might have them. They then go out and pull out a performance like this.
Yeah, 100%. And I completely echo with what Cam said there. Like, it brings a real sense of probably stability and calmness to that dressing room, getting that clean sheet and managing to score 5 at the same time. Diogo Jota, again, it's another point of jealousy for me, where I look at some excellent recruitment, 41 million. And I think in that game there, he really summed up Liverpool's, venom and clinicalness, and everything how they went about that game came from Diogo Jota. Personally, I think he's better than Firmino in the sense that he definitely brings more goals to the game and is maybe more of a traditional kind of goal scorer rather than this kind of unselfish, creative forward that Firmino adopts. So yeah, it is frustrating from the rest of the league's point of view when you maybe think, okay, Van Dijk's out, title open race, and then they look unbelievably strong against a very good Atalanta side. It does definitely probably calm all Liverpool fans, but worry the rest of us.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. I mean, I totally echo your thoughts. I mean, you think about how Diogo Jota cost almost as much as Timo Werner. Liverpool were reluctant to spend that much on Timo Werner, and they may have made the right choice. And again, as recruitment wise, I can hear the frustration in your voice. Recruitment wise, Liverpool found a way to kind of pick up a player who might be more worth equal or more of his value. So a very strong display from Liverpool, certainly. And we'll look at the group stage tables in a bit, as well as some odds of, which teams can we consider being the front runners in this competition. The other English team was Man City, who played on this day on Tuesday. I sounded very formal there. They took on Olympiacos side. They won 3-0. I mean, Ben, when I watched the highlights of Man City Olympiacos, and it does sort of resemble their season in a way. They have a really good patch in the first half, and then there are moments where they just seem to lose control a bit, and it does seem like teams find a way to get chances against them, which they shouldn't be having in the first place. But then City kind of in the end turn up the gears, and they find a way to put 2 goals in. What's your opinion of City at the moment? Because it does feel like they're getting these wins, but it's not completely convincing either.
Yeah, 100%. The word I use to sum them up is unconvincing. I'm just not quite convinced by City's performance. I watched them against Olympiacos team, and yes, Olympiacos do well, and they have made some surprises in Europe before. But I still think that is a team you should be convincingly putting to bed. But some of the goals, they were great goals. But then again, there was just a bit of an inability to break Olympiacos down sometimes. You kind of get this feeling that potentially teams have sort of worked out what they're going to do. But I think this year we all anticipated, Pep to come back with, these fresh load of signings and really be able to just challenge for the league again. They have that sense of bitterness after losing it to Liverpool. Yet it just seems that they're still just a bit lackluster. They almost seem like they've gone backwards from last season, which is really something I don't think any of us were expecting as football fans, because Man City time and time again rebuild. And it's baffling to watch sometimes. We'll see how obviously they get on tomorrow with Liverpool, and I'm sure we'll talk about that more. But that is going to be a key game to summing up their season so far.
Yeah, and viewers may recognize I've switched headphones, and that's because my original AirPods have just cut out. So now I am hopefully going to have this working again. But while I fix my technical mishaps, which is a regular thing for those on the show, Cam, it does seem like we talk about City being unconvincing. They do do you think, again, another clean sheet on Tuesday, do you think they've turned a corner since that Leicester game? Have they shored up defensively? It does seem like they have a bit more of a settled back four now with João Cancelo now putting in some decent performances. Ruben Dias looks a lot more comfortable. Have City turned a corner defensively?
They look better, but I think Ben's right. They're just not convincing at the moment. And I think the difference that we saw between City and Liverpool, even though Liverpool had a lot of injuries, at least they didn't really, they kept the sort of the same style almost, but they just seem more convincing, and they put in those performances to justify it. And this is the problem with City this season, and we said that centre back and just the defence in general was a big issue. And yes, okay, you can keep a clean sheet against Olympiacos, but it is Olympiacos, and it still at times look quite shaky. I mean, I think you do have to consider as well. I think with Aguero being out, I think that was a bigger hit to City than I think people realised, in terms of the fact it did change the balance of the City side, losing not just Aguero but Fernandinho and for a bit De Bruyne as well. So I think when they all come back, I think City will feel more settled then. And I think that probably does extend to the defence as well. But yeah, City aren't really convincing me at the moment. They seeming like they're just sort of getting through, really. And the thing is, last season, these sorts of games, City would be putting to bed by like 5, 6, maybe even 7 goals. And so, and don't get me wrong, it's not that the players aren't playing badly necessarily, but I just think Ben's kind of hit the nail on the head. City just aren't very convincing at the moment this season. I think they'll probably grow into themselves. I think having some of those players come back. And again, I think, Ruben Dias has brought a bit more stability to the defence, but I think this needs to convert more long term, because something, of course, Joe Spagnoli has mentioned on a lot of our shows previously is that City's centre backs just have a habit of regressing under Guardiola. And so I think if we can truly say that they're going to sort this out long term, then they need to show that this isn't going to happen with Ruben Dias, and that him and Laporte can have a stable partnership long term.
Yeah, grim listening for Ruben Dias if he's listening. That he might have to consider a future somewhere else at some point. Again, so City, for all their uncertainty around their defense at the moment, they do get the 3 points, and they move and they pick up a win against Olympiacos. Other results, I'm just going to quickly shout out. Salzburg vs Bayern Munich. For those, again, we did an interview with Jordan Maciel a couple of weeks ago, UEFA's reporter. He covers Bayern Munich, but he also covered RB Salzburg a lot last season. And so I remember he was very interested and excited by this game, and it proved to be a very good game to watch. So that was a big result. Obviously, I meant to be unbiased, but Gladbach, my favorite German team, they won 6-0 in Shakhtar, big result there, whilst Real Madrid picked up a 3-2 win at Inter. So that group's going to be very interesting when we look at the standings. So that was Tuesday. And then when we look on Wednesday, there's only one result we have to start with, and it was the early kickoff. This, obviously, Ben... we're going to bring up the first goal, actually. I'm going to screen share the first goal, and we can sort of break that down, because that one was an unbelievable watch for someone who didn't watch the game. But talk me through... I think I'm just going to leave you an empty canvas. Just talk me through whatever you want to talk about with this game.
Well, I'll start with the big problem, and that's defending. It was disgusting. I have never, ever, ever watched something and seen that before. It's mind-baffling. And the worst bit was Mike Phelan was standing on the side, the assistant manager, and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was sat in his chair, not doing anything. And it was a real, I'm sure we'll see it in a minute, but it was just an absolute mess of errors with, lack of communication. Fernandes taking the short corner, and then Wan-Bissaka pushing up when he had to be one of the two players back, and then Matic not even looking at Demba Bas, which, it was laughable. It was absolutely laughable. I saw Graham Souness say that the players are to blame, but I just really asked, who recruits those players? That's the problem, because I'm sorry, for 7 years now, since Sir Alex left, it's not like we've just been recruiting players and been unlucky with getting the people who aren't good enough or aren't quite motivated enough. You've got to look beyond that. It's the recruitment policy, which I've spoken about so many times, and it's the fact that there isn't one. It is, Edison Cavani as a signing. We could have signed him back in June because we signed him on a free, but no, we signed him on deadline day. So that was clearly not part of the recruitment plan, but we ended up doing it anyway. I don't even think we need a striker because the other striker we've got is Igalo, who hasn't even played, and we're paying his wages, half of his wages while he's on loan. Why? It doesn't make any sense. So yes, the players are to blame. You know, that's maybe not Ole's fault that goal was conceded, because that's very much a pitch and leadership issue there. But then again, who is recruiting these players? Why don't we have enough leaders in the team? It's very well to sit there and speculate that we don't have the leaders, but I'm sorry, you have to then go beyond that and look at that. Clearly, we're not recruiting enough leaders. Clearly, we're not recruiting in the right areas, because the same mistakes are happening again. And that is what it sums up. It sums up this inconsistency that Manchester United have. And it's getting really tiring, to be honest. As a fan, you know, PSG beat Leipzig and then 2-1 lost Istanbul. It doesn't make any sense, and it's ridiculous because it's not just a one-off. It is just this fluctuating inconsistency of good performances, bad performances, that is just actually getting to the point where it's hurtful for fans to watch. And you never know what Man United you're going to get. So yeah, that's my thoughts.
Yeah, we'll talk about Everton United in a bit when we kind of turn our attention to the Premier League. But I did want to, and I feel bad that I'm doing this to Man United fans, but I do have to sort of screen share, and I'm guessing this is working. I mean, you this goal, I don't know. I mean, if you look at, I mean, Cam, this is laughable, no? Like, having this much distance between the United defense and Demba Ba. This is laughable, no?
Yeah, I think words don't describe how laughable that is. It would have been slightly less laughable if at least they tried to play an offside trap with him. But there's just nothing there. It's just sort of just basic schoolboy defending there. You need someone like Demba Ba, who is a very good counter-attacking player, who is quick, who again, I think a lot of it was just the lack of respect that United showed for Istanbul. They do have some good players in there, and someone like Demba Ba, who we know, if you get the ball up and you leave him in duty, it's just how you can't prepare a simple counter-attack, because that is just comical. Like, yeah.
This was just something that really. I don't know. There was no. I didn't have many words after watching that. I'm sure Ben's seething with fury, but it goes to show. I mean, do you, as a United fan, it's almost as if you're presented with. It's a bit Jekyll and Hyde-ish, isn't it? You have a really good week last week. Well, before the weekend, at least before the Arsenal result, at least with the Leipzig result, and then this result. So in terms of like compare, I mean, it's hard to compare them, but which United do you sort of believe in? Do you believe in the team that beat Leipzig 5-0, or do you sort of see United as more that team that lost 2-1 to Istanbul?
I think it's so difficult. Because it's happened so many times. It happened last season. It's happened this season, and you literally you do not know what you're going to get with that Man United every time. I mean, I completely wrote them off the PSG and Leipzig games, and then I was like, okay, I need to stop being so harsh on my team, and then we go and do that, and that's the thing. It's really hard to take a side here, and I think there's so many different complications. Obviously, there's the behind the club problems. There's the manager problem. Is it his fault? They've come out and said they're sticking with him long term, which has disappointed some United fans. Obviously, Pochettino was on Sky Sports, very much looked like he wanted this job, and it's what he's been waiting for. So, you're kind of just caught in a limbo where I just feel like instead of judging what United's going to turn up, we just need to start fresh. I think completely, change up the backroom staff, then the manager, and then gradually the players will change with that. Because you can't have this level of inconsistency and expect to win trophies and games, let alone for that. So I think something needs to happen, because it really has halted the belief of Man United fans.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very hard to support. I mean, being a football fan, you get those ups and downs. So it is certainly a challenge. Cam, I know you have a question for Ben.
Yeah, I was just listening to kind of what you were talking there about sort of the whole structure at United at the moment clearly failing. But I noticed one person you kind of didn't mention there was Harry Maguire, and obviously the captaincy at United. And certainly if you that sort of error on the pitch in terms of the way you organise your team, a lot of it surely comes down to the captain. I know Maguire's come under quite a lot of fire recently. So do you think maybe perhaps a captaincy change on the pitch could rectify a lot of the problems that United have at the moment? Or is it that Maguire is just part of a much wider error at United, and actually he himself is okay to be staying as captain?
I think it's a really difficult and an interesting question, because I think personally he should have never been appointed captain in the first place. He was appointed very early. It was when Ashley Young left in January, and I never really likened to that, because I always saw Maguire as a player who will suit certain games and not suit others, and then him being captain therefore puts pressure on selection. Your captain needs to be someone who's guaranteed selected, and frankly, he hasn't been good enough so far this season, so he needs to be dropped. I think that's why a change in manager would probably elicit the idea of, okay, is this someone who can still be captain? I've watched him in training. Yes, he can. Or no, he should never have been captain. So let's change it all. But it's a really good question. Is he a product of the failure of Man United collectively, or has he contributed to it directly himself as being captain? But then it then comes about the problem of who would be captain. There's very few leaders in this team. Yes, Marcus Rashford potentially would be one, but again, he's very young. It could be very difficult. Bruno Fernandes, there were reports of issues behind the scenes that it's only speculation. We have no idea whether they're true or not. But then again, he does come across as a bit of a sulky character sometimes. So Paul Pogba, he can't even really get in the team at the moment. His performances have been that bad. So my issue is that I don't think Maguire should be captain, but I don't know who could replace him, because I don't think anyone in that team is worthy of captaincy of Manchester United at the moment.
Yeah, it's again, it's a bit of it's a situation that it's not going to get change. Change is needed long term, and I don't think it's something that happens overnight. So it's very interesting. We'll leave United alone for a moment. Obviously, the other result, Leipzig being PSG, again, that. I mean, we always knew that group was going to be tough, and Leipzig being PSG, I think, is another way of that group spinning around and flipping things on their head, as PSG now are third in their group, I believe. So that puts them in a bit of strife. Let's have a look at the other. I mean, there it is. Chelsea beating Rennes 3-0. 10-man Rennes, we should say. Cam, again, not a surprise, but certainly defensively, Chelsea have stepped up with Mendy and Thiago Silva. They look a lot more solid than we feared maybe at the start of the season.
Well, I think the thing we always said with Chelsea, it was going to take time. I mean, clearly that West Brom game was just a complete disaster, particularly from Thiago Silva's part. But Chelsea have really come on over the last month. I've been very impressed. I still don't see the identity. Perhaps this is a side that doesn't need an identity, but it is a collection of very good individuals that will mold together in some form. I think having Mendy back, I think certainly as that first choice keeper, because I think Kepa, whether his performances were bad or not, I think his confidence has just been shot. So I don't think you could even consider having him as your first choice keeper. And Mendy, I think, is just a more stable option for Chelsea. I think Ben Chilwell is someone who's really impressed me since he's got in that Chelsea team, not only in terms of his defensive abilities, but also going forward as well, giving Chelsea some width. He's been very good in that sense. And I almost think with Thiago Silva now getting into some sort of better form, I think that's really shored up a lot of the back. Timo Werner's come into his own, obviously 2 goals in this game. I think, again, Timo Werner was always going to take time. None of the best players that we have in the Premier League at the moment, we're hitting 10, 20 goals straight away, or certainly in that vein of form. And Timo Werner, I think, has really started to come into his own. So I just think it was always a case of just, I think, giving the team time to start playing together. And I think this game was just a demonstration of that. again, I think obviously Kai Havertz, there's still a few questions over him. Obviously now he's got COVID-19, and hopefully he makes a quick recovery and hopefully can get back out onto the pitch. But I think Chelsea have really demonstrated, yes, their best players are starting to sort of gel now, but they've also got a lot of depth that I think is making Chelsea, I'm not going to say, you know, anything like title contenders or anything like near the top, but they're looking like a more consistent unit than they did at the start of last season, even I'd say last season as well.
Yeah. I don't think there's a whole lot to add to that, really. I think it was just a solid win from Chelsea, and they just got the job done like they needed to. And so we should cut. I just need a quick update. There's been goals at Selhurst Park. It's now 2-1 Palace lead. So that's the unlikely goal fest that we didn't think we were going to get has kind of come about. Patrick Bamford has scored for Leeds. Surprise, surprise. He's continued his good form. Eze scored beforehand, double Palace's lead. So it is 2-1 at Selhurst Park. We will continue to bring you any big events, if any, happen. That's the group. That's pretty much how things are. The group standings are pretty straightforward, I want to say. I mean, obviously, the big one is obviously United, Leipzig, PSG. One of them will finish third and have to go in Europa League. Obviously, we can show that in just a bit. But we do have an interesting... there's a website that predicts a lot of these things. Cam knows it very well. It's 538. They do a lot of sports predictions, as I found out this week.
I've never seen that before. I'm intrigued now. I'm intrigued.
Famed for those who don't know, famed for their US politics predictions in terms of state elections, Senate elections rather, and the presidential election. But they do football predictions, and they predict a lot of them. So let's see if I can get this up and share the screen. There we go. So people should be able to see it. They have, let's look at the group stage. So if I go down to Leipzig, PSG, United, they give United a 49% chance of finishing top of the group, their Champions League group. Now, at the moment, they lead. They are on 6 points, joint with Leipzig, but with a favorable goal difference. PSG are on 3 points. So, Ben, it looks, and we take this with a grain of salt because it's a stats model, but and football is very rarely governed by stats at times, but it appears that United have a favourable chance of finishing top of the group. Do you kind of share that optimism, or are you still not convinced yet?
I'm much more convinced than I thought I was before the Champions League started. However, I'm still just wary of what Manchester United team are going to turn up. But I think, it's much better than what I thought was going to happen. And I think, you're probably looking at, with the inconsistency of PSG's performances as well, I think in terms of getting through to the group stage, one more win should really put us in a very strong position. So, you would hope that we'd get one more win, but I wouldn't rule anything out with Man United. So we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, it's a very interesting. It's an interesting position, that group, and as you can see, PSG have a 48% chance of finishing third, which going to the Europa League, which is very interesting scenario that would be. So bigger picture, I guess, moving away from the whole group stage, they have, as you can see in the final column, they have Bayern Munich, the favourites at the moment, on 25% chance of winning the final. Man City second on 17%, interestingly. Liverpool 8%. If we look down at kind of the notable English teams, Chelsea 4%, and so on. Cam, is the model right in predicting that Manchester City have the best chance of any English team to win the Champions League on their results so far?
On the results in the Champions League, possibly, but I don't know. Liverpool obviously had that very good game against. I'd still say Liverpool are the most likely out of any of the clubs in England. I think obviously the game against Ajax was not convincing, but they are, I think, a better side. And of course, Liverpool, we've seen in the past couple of seasons, are not a team that has a great group stage, but always, apart last season excluding, performed very well in the knockout stages. So I think that's wrong. I would say Liverpool probably, but I would say Liverpool just behind Bayern in terms of who you would say is most likely to win at the moment. Real Madrid, though, is a very interesting one because obviously Real Madrid looking through their group, have had a very difficult time so far, really not convincing whatsoever. And the fact they've only got a 68% chance of getting through to the round of 16, I think really, if they are to be the best team in Spain, like a lot of people have predicted they would be, I think there's a lot they still need to do to be more convincing. That was just something I noticed that really stood out to me. But yeah, in terms of your first question, I think Liverpool are definitely the second favourites behind Bayern, I would say, so far.
Yeah, I mean, that also caught my eye, and I just had a quick scroll there. If you see the other teams in their group, Inter Milan have 41% chance and Gladbach have a 65% chance. So it's very, very tight in that group. No doubt. Ben, you look at the final column in terms of percentage chance of winning the final. Do you agree with how the models calculated it and the order of those teams at the top?
I think I probably agree with Cam. I think it would be Bayern Munich at the top for me, and then Liverpool after that. I think because I think obviously it can't account for. I think Manchester City do have a massive psychological issue with the Champions League. I think there's a massive mental block there, and they could overcome it. But personally, I think again Liverpool are on that. They've got that. They look like they've got more hunger, and Manchester City more unconvincing, like we've said before. So I'd personally put them above, and same with Barcelona. I'm not sure I'd go with them being that high. Looking at some of their performances, while some of them have been good, I think their squad is in a transition stage. So I think the only thing I obviously agree with, I think Bayern Munich are outright favourites for the competition. I think the way they continue to perform, not only in the Champions League but in the Bundesliga, consistent across all levels. They managed to improve on last season's squad massively with Leroy Sané. I think they're definitely the favourites for the whole thing.
Yeah, and obviously, we have no idea what the round of 16 looks like. For all we know, Bayern Munich and Man City could be drawn together, and suddenly this model's kind of thrown a little bit. So just a very interesting thing. I didn't know 538 do, and they do Premier League predictions as well, which we'll have a look at later on. A very interesting stats model in terms of looking ahead at Champions League. Is there, just to wrap up on this, is there any standout player or team at the moment that has caught your guys' eye, whether it's someone that may have surprised you, someone who's disappointed you? Is there anyone that comes to mind? Ben, is anyone that comes to mind?
I think the only one that just keeps sticking in my head is Diogo Jota, who we talked about before. I'm a massive fan, and I think he, hopefully he can continue to perform at the level he's been performing at, because he's been a joy to watch and fits in beautifully with that Liverpool front three.
Yeah, Cam?
I don't think I can disagree. I think Jota, he showed some flashes since he's come to Liverpool, but that game against Atalanta just really showed why there's been so much hype about him and why it's been justified. I think perhaps if you're talking about teams, I think the one that really interests me is more the underperformance. I've already mentioned Real Madrid, but also PSG as well. I just don't know if this is the impact of coronavirus, because I think that's the thing with a lot of football leagues this year, is I'd say really apart from the Bundesliga and Ligue 1, it's very unpredictable this year. And I think some of that seeped through to the Champions League. So perhaps Real and PSG will pick up again, but really unconvincing so far.
Yeah, and PSG looked very sort of ill-disciplined, and their loss against Leipzig, 2 red cards. Obviously, that will cost them and will affect, I think it might affect the United game. I'm not entirely sure, but certainly a blow. So, yeah, we will wait and see. 3 match days to go, and we will be covering them every step of the way. So, with that, we will move on to just a general news roundup. There's not been a whole lot to catch up on, but we did have the international squad call-ups over the last few days, actually, very recently. So I will share the England squad up from what we have. So just bear with me. There we go. So there's the England squad. Are we surprised by any of these? Again, as I said in the video title, Gareth Southgate clearly loves fullbacks. A huge discrepancy towards fullbacks. I think I count at least 7 in this current squad. But yeah, Cam, I don't know. I mean, you might be looking at this for the first time. Is there any name that should be there, or is there that you're surprised by? What's your instant reaction to this?
This looks very much like the sort of team that I would consider being the team that goes to the Euros next year. I think, apart from the fact there are so many fullbacks in there, and I don't want to say, because I think Ainsley Maitland-Niles and Bukayo Saka are fantastic players, but I don't think they're anywhere near the selection for the Euros next year. I would probably agree with all the other fullback choices. I think you do need to. There's so much depth that Southgate needs to work out what he's got, and I think that's just the whole thing with the England side in general. I think it might have been good, maybe. I mean, obviously he's got all of the midfielders that I think he probably could have picked right now. Perhaps Mason Greenwood's the obvious omission from that side, I would say, but I think he's got the best of England midfield and best of England's attacking talent as well at the moment. Perhaps maybe Danny Ings could have been called up, and I do think if Jamie Vardy could come out of retirement, that would make things a bit more interesting. But yeah, I think from the face of it, there's no one that jumps out to me as an obvious omission. There's no one who jumps out to me as a sort of obvious shock in there. I think, as much as it pains me to say this, it's good to see James Ward-Prowse in that England side, because he has been in very good form recently. But yeah, it looks like the sort of team that's going to be getting us closer to the Euros. And I think, yeah, I think Southgate's very much looking ahead now. And he's really, I think if he sticks with this sort of group of players, and whether it's a case he starts rotating them, seeing what works best, I think that's got to be the priority now.
Yeah, Ben, a lot was made of Phil Foden's inclusion. With obviously he and Mason Greenwood had a interesting trip to Iceland, to put it mildly. Mason Greenwood obviously has not made the squad, and Phil Foden has. Is that? Do you put much weight into that, or is that just purely Phil Foden's in better form than Mason Greenwood at the moment?
I'd say it's got to be down to better form. I think the Phil Foden selection really makes sense. If you look at all of those midfielders there, I'm happy to see someone who can actually feed a pass between the lines. I think in the game when we saw Declan Rice and Calvin Phillips play side by side in central midfield, it was really two very similar kind of pivot players playing alongside each other, which just meant the ball was never getting fed into the attacker's feet, allowing them to turn and use their pace, which we have an abundance of. So I think that, yeah, I'm happy that Phil Foden's been included. And obviously Jack Grealish as well. I saw Southgate do a press conference and mention him, that he's happy with him. So hopefully he will get to play a bit more than last time, as he's been very impressive for Villa and England in the last call-up. So yeah, and I think Ben Chilwell, I was really happy to see a natural left-footed left-back in that squad, because I know Maitland-Niles and Saka are there, but they're not natural left-backs, they're not left-footed. So I think that is good to have someone back who can bring balance, because I was not a fan of Kieran Trippier playing left-back. So I think that will add further balance to the team. And I echoing Cam's thoughts, really. I think it is a very standard but very positive selection from England. The only player who I would want to see in there is Harvey Barnes, because I've been a big fan of him lately. He's been very impressive in Leicester's 4-1 win against Leeds. So a bit disappointed he's not in there, but obviously, hopefully, with England's diverse attacking talent, he'll be involved next time.
Yeah, we've seen him in the squad beforehand, so I'm sure he was in Southgate's thoughts. I mean, looking at the three goalkeepers, that's kind of caught my eye. Do we think one of these three is England's best goalkeeper right now? Is there someone who missed out on selection, and who do we think is England's best goalkeeper? Just Cam, it'd be surprised. I mean, would you say Pickford, or do you, given his current form, it's very hard to defend him as England's number one, surely?
I think the problem is, before the start of the season, I would have actually said Nick Pope. And I would have said Nick Pope very confidently. And I don't think he's been playing badly necessarily this season. I just think Burnley have just got very little squad depth, and have just as a team just really not been playing well. And I think it has had a bit of an impact on Nick Pope, even though there have been some games where he has made obviously a lot of saves, and I do think I still think he's England's number one. I just don't think he's in the right environment necessarily to be keeping those consistent clean sheets in a way that Pickford has with Everton, where Everton have been doing so well. I think it covers for him almost. Obviously, I think Pickford, the problem with Jordan Pickford is he's always one. You always get the feeling he's one error away in every game. You always feel that there's something like that could just come out of him at any time, which you don't get with Nick Pope. I think Dean Henderson's an interesting one, because if Dean Henderson was United's number one this season, or at least playing more games, we know he's been playing some of the games in Europe this season, but if he was playing more in the league and had more of an opportunity to stake his claim, I reckon he could be England number one by the end of the season. But he's not getting that game time. So we've gone from a situation really where we had, I think about a year ago, where we were quite confident with our goalkeeping talent, to I think now, even though it's the same players, I think we are a lot more unsure, either for the fact that they are similarly error-strewn or even more, or the fact they're just not in the right environments in terms of their clubs, either the team's underperforming or they're not getting enough game time. So yeah. That's what I would say on the goalkeeping. Definitely, I think a lot more unsure, even if they are the best three right now.
Yeah, and Ben, I would further kind of expand it to the whole squad. I mean, I think the forwards are probably the most secure picks at the moment, because I look at that team and there is a legitimate case to say Conor Coady is England's best centre-back at the moment, given Joe Gomez has not looked so secure for Liverpool. We talked about Harry Maguire just now. He's had a very up and down season. There is a strong case to make that Conor Coady's England's best centre-back. And as for the midfield, again, this is a mid. I mean, we talk about Phil Foden and his qualities obviously stand out, but again, it's a midfield that doesn't. Am I wrong to think it doesn't inspire a whole lot of confidence either? What do you make of, I guess, the goalkeeping situation, and then I guess just take me through your thoughts on the other groups, because I do feel the forward line is probably the most secure of the sort of lines in the squad.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think, I agree with what Cam said. And the thing is, I think you need stability, calmness, and reassurance in your goalkeeping and your two central defenders. That's where it's most important. And Pickford is rash. He is so rash, and he does not bring that. And I feel like, even though maybe Nick Pope's been a product of of Burnley's poor form, and Dean Henderson hasn't been playing much, I still think we need to see one of them play a game, because the goalkeeping situation is not stable. There's no one outperforming one of the others. They're all not really standing out from one another. And personally, I'm not a Jordan Pickford fan at all. Having just watched him, I saw him made tons of mistakes and possibly should have been sent off in the Man United game that happened about an hour ago. I think that I'd even say Aaron Ramsdale it should be in that squad ahead of Jordan Pickford, but that however, I know he's been a good servant to England. And the same with defence. Yeah, Conor Coady. I think he is probably England's best central defender. You look at Eric Dyer. He does make quite a few mistakes. Joe Gomez. He's been unconvincing with Van Dijk not next to him. Harry Maguire. We don't need to talk about. I think that's the thing as well. Central defence. There's no leadership there. There's no outright selection there, so that presents a bit of an issue, and brings forward to midfield, like you were saying, Josh. There's not, I'd say, apart from Jordan Henderson, there's not one person in there I'd be like, yes, can you start and you lead that midfield, because there's so many different combinations. I feel like a lot of them are very similar. I don't feel like Harry Winks brings much different to Declan Rice, who doesn't bring much different to Calvin Phillips. Same with James Ward-Prowse. I think these are very good players, but they should play a supporting role, and we don't have anyone for them to support at the moment. The front line is the only one that I think, like you said, is there's outright stars there, and I think there's a lot of interesting combinations. I think that you're going to have a headache selecting who you want to play from that front line, which is positive, which is good. But then the problem is, with that being the front line, who's going to feed the balls in. That's really what I think England's issue has been. It's been the creativity and the stability at the back, which we don't really have. I think Southgate may be trying to achieve that stability by sticking with Jordan Pickford, but then again, you have to weigh up, how's that going to affect it? So if his performances are poor, so it's an interesting one, and hopefully they can gel a bit more, and we'll understand our best lineup more before the Euros.
Yeah. So, Cam, I mean, do you want to bring up that midfield that you've sort of suggested that neither of the three suggestions you've made are in the squad? Do you want to just quickly share them?
Well, I've just been having a look at some of England's recent call-ups over the last year. And obviously James Maddison was one actually, well, we said about the team for Euro 21. I think James Maddison would be straight into that 23, maybe even straight into the England 11. He is obviously a fantastic player, very creative at Leicester. And I think certainly he's come on a lot under Brendan Rodgers as well. So I would think that's obviously one omission. Obviously, he's been injured a lot recently. And I know he's only got the one cap, but I think he's someone that definitely England would bring into the team. And really, should we bring into the team now, really? I know he's only just recently started to come back, but he does need to, I think, get himself settled into that England team. I think Ross Barkley's an interesting one because we talked about, obviously, Barkley going to Villa online, but he's been playing very well, certainly since he's got to Villa, and he has looked a lot better player than he ever did at Chelsea. So I think that's an interesting one to see how he develops. And of course, Oxlade-Chamberlain as well, who's someone who's always been at the fringes of the England side, often through injury, kind of taking him out rather than actually him as a player. He is a very good quality player. And I think having him and Jordan Henderson, I think having players who know each other well through their clubs. So a midfield of, I'm assuming England would line up 4-3-3 at the Euros, seeing as that's how Southgate has played England a lot. A midfield, again, Henderson very much playing that sort of holding midfielder role that he does at Liverpool. Having James Maddison in there, I think he'll probably start, unless I think there's anything radical. And apart from that, it's an interesting one to see. I think Oxlade-Chamberlain could make a case to start. Jack Grealish as well could easily make a case to start in that 11. I think if Mason Mount gets more game time, Phil Foden as well. So there is a lot of midfield quality that I don't think is necessarily in that team. And a lot of it, I think, once injuries come out, I think will bring a lot more depth and a lot more quality into that midfield. But I do get what you say, that it doesn't feel really inspiring, this team. And I think that it does highlight the fact that England do need to have a particular set of players in that midfield, I think, for it to work for them.
Yeah, so I basically have the sense that England need to play a team of fullbacks, wingers, and strikers to win the Euros. Am I wrong? Should we just Kyle Walker in goal, because he's, we've seen him playing goal. Put Reece James, Alexander. Is that the way to go? Just play fullbacks, strikers, and wingers.
That would be an interesting experiment. Definitely, I mean, they can't be worse than Jordan Pickford, or they can't be more Quaran-Stream. Certainly.
Yeah. We'll see how they go. I can't remember. It does say on the top they play Ireland, Belgium, and Iceland. You'd assume. I mean, we'll probably talk about the results of these more detailed when on our next Quaran-Stream or whenever these games take place. But you would think, and just, I know we don't have detailed analysis of the three opposing teams. Maybe Belgium's the most familiar one, but you'd assume a win in two of those, right? Ireland and Iceland. Am I wrong to assume that you'd expect wins in those, Ben?
No, they've got to be wins. I think that they 100% should be wins. My only worry would be us being able to break them down. I'm not convinced with the creativity there, but we'll see how it goes. Maybe if Jack Grealish starts, that would spark something a bit different. But 100%, it's got to be 2 wins at least from them.
Yeah, Cam, it does feel like Iceland are England's sort of bogey team, doesn't it? That's sort of the little rivalry I wouldn't say rivalry, but that's sort of where England are with Iceland. It's sort of their bogey team.
I think we are slightly exaggerating the pain of 2016 quite a lot. I mean, the Iceland game in Reykjavik, of course, England needed that last-minute penalty to win the game. And they are a difficult team to break down, but I do think England play well. Obviously, I think the games against Denmark, in fact, this whole Nations League, I think has highlighted the creativity problem in that midfield I think we've been talking about. And I think, yeah, I agree with Ben. I think you have to get Jack Grealish in that starting 11, just because certainly within that team there at the moment, he is the most creative midfielder that England have got. He'll get stuff going. I think Phil Foden, it'll be interesting to see how Foden and Grealish go, because it's not like England don't have players they can't call up, like we said, with Maddison, Barkley, Oxlade-Chamberlain. So I think this will be a good opportunity for Jack Grealish, I think, to live up to that potential. People have always said that he is someone with the potential to be a major star in that England midfield. He just needs to get that game time now. So I think that's definitely something to watch. And I do hope he gets some games and he gets to show what he can do.
Yeah. So, I mean, we'll see what happens with England throughout this. I'm sure we'll cover it, and I'm sure we'll have plenty of opinions on it. I'll just run through a quick score update. So, Crystal Palace have found their scoring boots and a 3-1 up at home to Leeds, which feels like I'm not sure whether I should be surprised by that scoreline, but they are performing wonders at Selhurst Park at the moment. Just bearing with me as I try to find the identity of the goal scorer. But Crystal
it was own goal, Helder Costa.
Oh, was it? Oh, okay. Well, that's an interesting. Palace and own goals makes sense for some reason. Is their goal scorer. I am having a look around the continent for any kind of notable ones. Leipzig, we talked about Leipzig earlier. They are 2-0 up against Freiburg, and this website is taking a long time, so bear with me. But yes, they're 2-0 up there. Barcelona are drawing 1-1 with Real Betis. Ousmane Dembele scored in the 22nd minute. That was cancelled out by Sanabria equaliser. And then having a look at the Championship, Bournemouth lead Birmingham 2-0. Blackburn lead QPR 1-0. Goalless in all other games. Luton lead Huddersfield Town 1-0. Nottingham Forest the same against Wickham. And Coventry City goalless away at Watford as well. And Cam, how's the Portsmouth game been going?
So just kick off in the second half. We are 2-1 up. So as I said, goal at the start, nice little free kick from Ronan Curtis, low into the near post. Keeper turns it onto the near post, goes into the back of the net. Second goal, Andy Cannon, nice little pass into Tom Naylor, volley into the back of the net in the 13th minute. John Nolan pulls back a goal for Ipswich. So we start the second half 2-1. Portsmouth very much looking the better side at the moment, although Ipswich certainly did start to come alive towards the end of that first half. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes in the second half, whether Portsmouth can sort of arrest the momentum that Ipswich was starting to get towards the end of that half. I hope they do. I want another FA Cup run this season.
Yeah, Cam, I've actually pulled up 538's predictions of League One. So if you want, I will reveal to you that Portsmouth, 538 give Portsmouth a 6% chance of winning League One. And a 24% chance of being promoted.
Well, I mean, to be honest, we've failed to be promoted for the last 2 seasons when we've literally missed golden opportunities in playoffs just by playing because literally we tend to get into really good form at the start of the season. February we're awful. We'll get into great form at the end of the season, and then we'll go awful into the playoffs again. Similar this season, we started off playing absolutely awfully, but we started to come into form. We're 7th in the league at the moment. We just need to have a bit more consistency. This is arguably the toughest task we've had to go up yet, because you've got teams like Sunderland, Hull, Ipswich, Charlton. It's a very difficult league to go up from this season. But I think for the club, we just need to get out of League One, because we are, as I said, we won the FA Cup 13 years ago. I think the Championship is very much our level. I think wouldn't it be good to bring Championship football back to Fratton Park after the last year that we've had? I think that would be good. Definitely something that would make the Portsmouth fans a lot happier.
Yeah, there we are. There's the predictions I was kind of running through. Ben, who's your local team?
My local team would probably be Portsmouth.
Really?
I'd probably go Portsmouth. So yeah, I don't know. I think obviously I did watch the Sunderland documentary, so I would be supporting them a little bit as well after seeing those fans and what they have to go through. But yeah, no. I'll back Cam with Portsmouth.
I mean, I nearly had to watch the club die twice in the last 10 years. So yeah. I think to go back up would be something that I think we all need to get back to the sort of Championship, Premier League. Premier League's a pipe dream. But again, we were in the Championship, the second administration, which really hit us badly. We were kind of mid-table Championship, and then it all just kind of collapsed from there. So I think to get back there would really kind of be nice. It would be nice. It'd be feeling like we've got back to where we belong. Definitely.
Yeah. I'm quite enjoying that 538 are predicting leagues, or like so many leagues. I'm quite looking forward to using this as a resource for Raw Sport throughout the next few shows. But yeah, let's turn our attention to the Premier League. And as we said, plenty of games going on at the moment. But a quick look back at last weekend, since we didn't look at it too much, but I mean, none of these results stand out hugely. I mean, we'll talk about Arsenal's performance against United, because I feel like with United, we'll talk about them after the Everton game, at least where they stand after the Everton game, as opposed to where they stood a week ago. But it was a very good display. And Ben, I assume you watched this game. How impressive were Arsenal when you came up against them? Obviously, a week on from that win.
They're very impressive. They were very in our faces. I thought Tom's Partey was excellent. The pressing was amazing, and that's the thing. You couldn't really discredit them. I think they had a fantastic performance. I think they maybe did struggle a little bit creatively a couple of times, but they got the penalty, they got the goal, and they got the job done. So yeah, I think things are looking really positive for Arsenal. I think Mikel Arteta's doing wonders there, and I think Thomas Partey, obviously we don't want to hype him up too much because he's very new to the league, but I think he is an exceptional player. I think there's a lot of good things that should come with him being a fantastic new addition and sign of recruitment from them.
Yeah, he was very impressive, and I think like Arsenal as a unit seemed a lot more stronger and a lot more organized. And going back to, I remember Cam, you made this point very early on in the term, Arsenal look a completely different animal to what we've become accustomed to, maybe. So really good stuff there. I mean, Cam, do any of these other results from last week, did any of them stand out to you, or were they pretty much as you expected?
Pretty reasonable. I think the Newcastle-Everton game, I think Newcastle did play very well. I think they deserved to win that. Everton have been on quite a dodgy run of form recently. I think obviously they had that fantastic start to the season. I think the Southampton game knocked a lot of confidence out of them. So kind of petered out there. I thought Newcastle did very well. Callum Wilson, I think, is showing for once that Mike Ashley had a good summer in the transfer window. He has been playing very well. Tottenham again as well. I think that was a very good performance to beat Brighton there. Good to see Gareth Bale get on the score sheet as well. And obviously that Tottenham side, I've got to just say, I think they have, outside of Liverpool, been the side that's impressed me most. So, yes, defensively, obviously the West Ham game, they still have that fragility that it's really uncharacteristic for a Mourinho side to have that fragility. But the link-up play between Harry Kane and Son Heung-min, Gareth Bale starting to assert himself in that side, that midfield with Højbjerg, it just looks like a much more stable unit and a much better unit than the one that was playing 1 year ago. And I think Mourinho has sort of done a lot of underrated wonders. And I know people were saying that before, and I was one of those saying at the start of the season, that Tottenham wouldn't make top four this season. I know Joe Spanioli had Tottenham going nowhere near, not even in the top six. I really do think they'll be title contenders this season. I really do think they if they can sort out their issues at the back, I think that game just highlights, like many of the games so far, I think Tottenham are going to be in this race for the title this season.
Yeah, apologies. I was trying to get this in time. A little surprised, but I'm unable to do so. I'm just loading it up now. But yeah, Tottenham have been impressive. I think, and we'll talk about a bit about. They have the possibility of doing really well. I think they have the possibility of going up into first place. If I'm correct me if I'm wrong, for if they can beat West Brom, which should be you'd expect them to. Yeah, they do have the chance of leapfrog into the top spot, so that should be interesting. And if this screen share works, I think Jose Mourinho has been very uncharacteristic in sorts of like his social media presence, as well as his teams being a very attacking threat. So that's been exciting, and I especially enjoyed this one. As Jose Mourinho stolen social media, should we just? I know, obviously, next week I plan to do some sort of like too early season awards. I'm very like much putting Jose Mourinho forward for meme of the season so far, or just social media of the season so far. If anyone wants to weigh in on that.
I think just in general about Mourinho, Jose Mourinho is a much happier man at Tottenham than he ever was at Man United. And I think the thing is, we're talking about Jose at United, and they were saying, oh, has he completely lost his energy now? Has he completely lost his touch as a manager? I think very much. I think the environment at United, the fact he couldn't get the players that he wanted, the fact he was sort of having these issues with Ed Woodward, I just think really compromised him. And I think we've seen a very different Mourinho since we've got back, since he's gone to Tottenham. I mean, we knew, from his days at manager of Real Madrid, that he can build attacking sides, that he can have sides that score lots of goals. But he's very much put a lot more emphasis on attacking now, and he's really started to harness a lot of the talent in that Tottenham side. And I think, Mourinho has always been a fantastic manager. And I think United, it was very much the product of United just destroying him. And I think going back to Tottenham, it's the happiest I've seen Mourinho as a manager in a long, long time. And I think that's rubbing off on his players, because I still think, and I think his time at Tottenham has just really shown that he is still one of the best managers in the world right now, even if his methods aren't the most innovative, the most modern, the most catchy, but he's still effective. He still gets results. And I think it's really starting to rub off onto his team. And I think this new, happier Mourinho, I think is both good for English football and it's good for Tottenham. I think Pochettino took Tottenham so far. I think Mourinho's just giving them that extra step now that's going to take this set of players that were developed under Pochettino and now take them to that next level. And I think he's been given the environment that allows him to do that. And that can only be a good thing for them.
Yeah, Ben, actually, Cameron is an interesting point. Do you agree that this, you obviously saw Mourinho extensively during his time at United. Is this is this sort of a kind of a refreshed, changed man from that experience at Old Trafford?
Yeah, 100%. He does seem so much happier, and like Cam said, that will rub off on the players. I think it was at Manchester United. I don't blame him for the failure of that at all. I look at that and I blame the leadership back from staff. I'll just use one example, but Ed Woodward gives him a 3-year contract, then comes to the summer and denies him all of the players he wants and gives him Fred, who wasn't even on his list. Again, how can you get a manager to sign a 3-year contract? But, our club paid the price for it when we paid 45 million to sack him. So, it was stuff like that I think the problem with Manchester United, it's not the manager, it's behind the scene, and I'll leave that there. But I think Spurs v West Brom this weekend, I think, is an absolutely massive game. They've got a chance. They've got a real chance now to, counter on some of the other team's failures. And a previous Spurs would shy away and lose this game. Whereas this is a chance for them now to show how they've come, to show, we've all seen the documentary, how they're not a group of just nice guys anymore. They're going to be winners. And if they win this West Brom game convincingly as well, I thoroughly agree with Cam. I think they are title contenders because that is a shift in mentality for that Spurs team.
Yeah, I think this is all because of the Amazon doc. I think this is the lasting legacy of the Amazon all or nothing thing. I think it's relaxed Jose. He's clearly realized he can become a meme, and he's created that his Instagram account, and then I think it's loosened him up. Maybe he watched it and kind of took notes, and then has changed his approach. I don't know. Maybe this is just me.
I think it showed a different side to Mourinho, because Mourinho had always been this sort of very arrogant, self-assured, sort of in love with himself coach that people kind of didn't always feel that they could connect with. And I would say people could feel that they could sort of connect with Mourinho in a way now. And I think maybe it is a secret blessing upon them this season. I don't think it's going to change the way he manages, but actually I think it showed the humanity of Jose Mourinho, and perhaps he has capitalized on that now, or just in fact it's a more general byproduct, I think, of the fact that he had such a terrible time at United, took that year out. And even when he started making sort of the punditry, when he was doing some of that on Sky Sports, you could tell Mourinho, it felt like he was in a slightly more relaxed place. And I think that's really starting to show off in his management now. And I think Ben's right. He still has that killer, he can still inject that killer mentality into those Spurs players in a way that Pochettino, who obviously developed them and made them a really good attacking unit, but could never put their mentality across in a way that Jose could. But Jose's not brought the negativity with him that there's there with United that was really a result of just all the issues that were going on at United. So, yeah, this is a much better Jose Mourinho, a much better Tottenham at the moment. It is, I would say, I'm more excited about them now than I was even under Pochettino.
Yeah. This is a Spurs team that I think looks a bigger threat, and we'll go on to 538's predictions of where Tottenham stand in a bit and kind of compare and see if we agree with their stuff. But I mean, we'll go through the fixtures that have taken place. And Ben, you said, I mean, United, we can now, I guess, talk about them in the most up-to-date style, as opposed to kind of looking back. And a good win against Everton, who, as Cam said, started very well, have sort of hit the barriers a little bit. Was that what did you make of their performance and their win?
I thought it was an okay performance. You know, I'm not going to sit here and get, you know, overly like praise them, because it was at times, it was very, you know, when we went behind, I was like, here we go again. But they did, all three goals were good goals, but I thought Bruno Fernandes played a massive part in all three of them. Obviously 2 goals and 1 assist. And seeing Edison Cavani get his goal, that did bring a smile to my face. I was very happy to see him finally get a goal, because he's just been coming on for 5 minutes really when we've been defending so far. So that was a nice change. But yeah, I think it was an okay performance. It was a must win for Ollie, because I know the club can come out and say we're planning with him for the long term. But if he lost against Everton, I honestly, the social media backlash there would have been intense from Manchester United fans. So I think it's a positive. It's definitely much better to go into the international break having had this result. But still a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of defensive issues there. And yeah, hopefully they can just build on that. But I said that a couple of weeks ago and we ruined it again. So don't have my hopes too high.
Yeah, it does feel like a very important win for United, and something they needed. And I mean, Cam, looking at the other side of it, Everton. I mean, we thought that. I mean, you talked about the Newcastle result. We thought that's maybe because they didn't have James Rodriguez, but he came back today, and they didn't seem to have it again. Is this sort of were our expectations was it kind of like our expectations rising as we saw what was happening, and then have sort of fallen back to earth? What do we make of Everton? Did we maybe, you know, expect too much of them after seeing their early performances, and now they kind of reverting back to where we thought they'd be the norm?
They're still a good side ultimately, and I mean, you can't expect Everton to. No one expected Everton to be in the position. I think that's the thing we've got to say. If Everton had the record they have after these first 8 games at the moment, I think people would say it was a pretty decent start from them. It was just because they won their first 4 games. I think we've got to remember as well, their first 4 games, apart from the Tottenham game, to be honest, Tottenham in that first game, I don't think played well at all, but they've been unstoppable really since then. I think Everton haven't really had the toughest run of games. I think they did play well, obviously excluding, I think, obviously the 3 goals that they conceded, admittedly. They still do look like a good side, Everton, and there is quality in there. I think obviously recent sort of unsettled nature of Pickford, I think, even whether Pickford's starting or not, I think that will have an effect on the team because there is that sort of uncertainty in terms of do we have a reliable keeper at the moment. I think that's not going to help in many senses. And again, I think the important thing to say about Everton is they're a good set of players. They're coming together, but I think Ancelotti still has work to do there. I think obviously it is a team with a lot of players that have only started playing together recently. And the fact they had such a brilliant start, fantastic, but they are going to have poor runs of form. And I think Ancelotti does need to arrest it. He does need to change it. But I think there's no doubt that there is quality in that side. There's no doubt that they can make a push for top six. There's no doubt that Ancelotti has the qualities of a manager to continue to develop these set of players. But they do need to start to turn it around relatively soon just to get a bit of confidence back. One last thing, though, I just wanted to swallow on from what Ben was saying about Ollie. I think it's ludicrous. And Ollie, even I would admit at the start of the season, he had a fantastic run of form. But I think he's gone into this latest low. But I just think when you've got a manager like Pochettino on the sidelines, a lot of young players who literally, we saw what Pochettino did with the group of young players at Spurs, the way he took the likes of Dele Alli and Harry Kane from good, decent, promising young players to obviously Dele Alli, he has slipped back slightly then, but at his prime, Dele Alli was one of the best midfielders in England. Harry Kane has now become arguably, I would say, one of the best strikers in world football at the moment. And Pochettino was central to that development. So it's becoming harder for Ollie to justify his position. When you look at what United need at the moment, Pochettino fits exactly that.
Yeah. It does feel like Ollie. Again, it's sort of hard to judge him as a manager. It's fair to say, given the ups and downs as Ben has experienced. But he certainly. Do you think he's earned more time with this, Ben, with this Everton win, or is this sort of a still wait and see kind of thing?
I think he has earned more time. I think he's done it again, is in the sense that every time his job comes under threat, he seems to just extend it and buy himself some more time. But I 100% agree with what Cam says. If Pochettino wasn't on the sidelines, I'd potentially feel different and say keep him. But you've got, in my opinion, a world-class manager who wants the job. If anyone listens to that Sky Sports interview that he did when he was a pundit on there, he really wants the job. He praised all of the players, and then he said he's waiting for the right project, obviously rumoured to have rejected Barcelona and Juventus approaching him. So for me, it's a perfect fit as well. This club needs control. Pochettino is someone who loves control. He loved control over Tottenham. He loved control over the transfers. He loved control over tactics. He loved control over the players' well-being, all of it. And Manchester United is a club that needs a leader to get grip of it. And then hopefully that will then be reflected in the squad. So I think that would be the appointment for me, but it doesn't look like it's going to go that way anytime soon.
Yeah, I echo your thoughts on Pochettino's appearance on was it Monday Night Football. He came across very well, and maybe it is sort of the punditry landscape that relaxes managers, as we talked about Jose as well. So there's that. We have an update, and there's been another goal, and hold your headlines because Crystal Palace have made it 4-1 at home to Leeds. Jordan Ayew has now added the fourth, which. If Leicester can do it last weekend, Crystal Palace can do it this weekend, I guess, with Leeds 4-1s all across the board. A quick word on Southampton, who have won football Twitter with their tweets at the moment. Cam, it must pain you to see them at the top.
It does.
Yeah,
it does.
It must pain you, but give us your thoughts on where Southampton are at the moment.
Yeah, and even more annoyingly, Pompey have now gone from 2-2, conceded now it's 2-2 at Portman Road. So literally at that exact moment, it couldn't have got any worse. No, it pains me as a Portsmouth fan to say that Southampton are doing very well at the moment. It really does pain me. I will mention James Ward-Prowse earlier. Che Adams as well, another player who has really come on under Hassan Hutel. I think the link-up play and just the partnership that he's got with Danny Ings is something that is just incredible. And I think that tweet just really, yeah, I think they'll give them that they're good on Twitter. It pains me to say that, but no, again, Southampton will not finish top 4 this season. They won't finish top 6. They're playing very well, but they won't be there at the end of the season. And I'd like to say that's me being slightly objective on that. But I think one thing to say actually with Southampton is you've got to give a lot of credit to Ralph Hasenhüttl for the way he took a side that a year ago was losing 9-0 to Leicester and very much had his job on the line. And the way that Southampton have played since, as much as it pains me to say it, he has worked wonders there. And of course, a lot of people forget about Hasenhüttl, that he was the man that with RB Leipzig, for example, he is the reason RB Leipzig, or a large part of the reason RB Leipzig are in the position they're in at the moment. So he has form in developing a group of players and taking them to places where they really wouldn't have dreamed of being. And that was a very shrewd appointment when Southampton made it. To go, I think, from Mark Hughes to Ralph Hasenhüttl was an incredible appointment for them. They've really come on a lot. I don't think they'll finish. They won't finish top 4. They won't finish top 6. But there's a very good set of players, and he's getting the best out of them. So perhaps Southampton are going to turn into the Liverpool recruitment academy again, if he's developing players that much. I can only hope their best players get poached. So there's a chance that when we get promoted back into the Championship, we'll be able to thrash them in the derbies whenever they come about. But yeah. Does pain me to see Southampton doing this well at the moment, admittedly.
Yeah, I remember I wrote for an article for another site about how he was the man to turn things around, and I mean, you referenced that they were once the sort of envy of Premier League in terms of the way they could bring youngsters through into the first team, and under the likes of Pochettino, even Ronald Koeman. Under Koeman, they did well there, and Ben, I mean, you can't help feeling anything but impressed by Southampton at the moment. And again, Cam references Ralph Hasenhüttl, who's not, he's not the sexiest name when it comes to football managers, but certainly has plenty of pedigree and is showing off his skills and excelling in the world of football management in the Premier League.
Yeah, no, I think I really appreciate him, and I really appreciate Southampton. I think, if you look at really over the last 5 to 10 years in football, when you look at a team that really operates as a unit, you think of Burnley, you think of Crystal Palace, those defensive, solid, compact teams. I think what Southampton offer you is a more dynamic, free-running, high-pressing unit of a team. And I think that's why you appreciate them, because they've adapted that model of unity and adapted it to today's game of which is really just high pressing. So I think you really appreciate what they've done. I think obviously Danny Ings, an incredible player. I'm impressed with Shea Adams, because obviously I think he is stepped up in the last game with Danny Ings missing. It's a big shoes to fill. So yeah, I'm impressed with them, and I'm really interested to see how their season goes. And I think they are just one of those clubs that from a neutral perspective, you do always keep an eye on and appreciate.
Yeah, they are a team on the rise at the moment after sort of, I don't want to call it the lost years, but Mark Hughes, it was not, for me, it wasn't that great to watch. So I will call it the lost years. I'll just call it the lost years. I hope he doesn't watch. So anyway, we'll leave Southampton players aside. Obviously, they can still be overtaken depending on results at the moment, but we'll wait and see. Let's jump to. We'll have a look. We'll talk about the big game that's coming, and that is City Liverpool tomorrow. A huge game between two teams. That is this. Am I exaggerating, Cam, when I say this is an early preview of a title decider, essentially, like this early on? Is it too early to call it a title decider, or am I sort of on the right path there?
It's been so unconvincing that this isn't the title decider. The titles, I don't think, is going to be between two teams. I think if you're looking at the teams at the moment who are going to be part of that title battle, I would say Liverpool, Tottenham, obviously. I think Leicester could, or they could be sort of in that battle for third, fourth, fifth like they were last year. I think Chelsea will fall into that. City, I don't know. I don't know if City are title contenders at the moment because they just haven't been convincing at all. Like we said in the Champions League, when we're talking about the Champions League, okay, yes, they're missing Aguero. Yes, they're missing Fernandinho. But they're not convincing. Obviously, Sterling, Ferran Torres, that started to look like a good partnership up front. De Bruyne has still been okay in the midfield. The centre-backs look somewhat more stable. But I'm just not convinced by them. If you look at the league so far, I've got the table up at the moment. This is a City side that has only scored 9 goals in their first 6 games. And put it into perspective, this time a year ago, they'd already put 8 goals past Watford and were banging in sort of 4 or 5 goals naturally. So defensively, they've actually been a lot better this season, but they're now just not getting the goals. And that's been their big strength. So, yeah, I'm really unsure about City. I think they may be a more defensively able unit, but the attack's not there. And I think against Liverpool, I think that's really going to hurt them. And I can't see them getting a result out of this. And to be honest, I can't see them getting a result against a lot of the big teams in the Premier League at the moment whose attacking quality has improved. And City, without Aguero, I just don't think have that same attacking bite. And so they could be in the title race, but this isn't the decider. I would say if there is a decider at the moment, it is Liverpool-Tottenham. But yeah, I think it's going to be more teams than that in the fight in the end.
Yeah, I mean, that's understandable given the state of the season. I mean, you mentioned, Ben, we talked about City early on, how they can have spells where they are completely on the back foot. And we know this Liverpool team can punish them for, they don't need that long to do so. But equally on the other end, we've seen Liverpool with defensive lapses this season as well. So, I mean, what do you make of this game? We're expecting goals, no? We're expecting a high-scoring affair between these two teams.
I think so, yeah. I think this is an absolutely massive game for Manchester City. Whilst I don't think it's a title decider, I think it determines whether City will be fighting for the title. I think if they lose, and especially by a big scoreline, which I'm not ruling out, I could see it happening, I think that's over. They really just give me the impression of just a team that is just really kind of bored and they're kind of just really flat. And I think, normally to stop that from happening, you'd say manager change, but Pep Guardiola, one of the best managers in the world, you're not going to do that. So maybe with the signings they tried, they didn't quite get the freshness integrated into the squad that they needed. Maybe in that midfield, I don't know. But, we'll have to see. It's going to be a massive game for Man City, but I think what they've got, if Van Dijk was there, I'd say 100% Liverpool win. But you don't know. There's a lot of holes in that Liverpool team that Manchester City could put pressure on and exploit, which I'm sure they will be working on in the training ground with Pep Guardiola. So I think it's going to be a really, really interesting game. I'd say Liverpool are going to be the favourites, just looking at the season so far. But with an unstable defence, you don't really know what's going to happen. So it'll be a good game.
Yeah, and with that, I feel like before we turn our attention to the other games, we're going to do something we did a couple of weeks ago at United Chelsea when they played, and we'll do a sort of combined 11, break it up a bit with a little bit of a fun sort of thing for us to do. I would say let's not include the likes of Van Dijk and Aguero. Let's do the players who are kind of fit at the moment to make it a bit more interesting. So we start in goal, and it's between Alisson and Ederson. So anyone want to weigh in? I have to, full disclosure, I'm going to cut aside my Liverpool biases, and I'm just going to play impartial. So Alisson or Ederson, who do you guys prefer?
I've got to go Alisson. Both keepers are fantastic. I mean, this is probably, I think, the most difficult one because they are, I would say, maybe even amongst the best keepers in the world, Alisson and Ederson, and they have been fantastic the last couple of seasons. But I just think you just only have to look at the impact of how Liverpool play that defensively when Alisson's in the team compared to when he's not. And I think he is far more important to that team than I think Ederson is to City, because I think Claudio Bravo is somewhat okay as a keeper still. So I think Alisson is the better keeper out of the two of them as well. So it's Alisson just though, but it's a really difficult one to decide between them.
Yeah, Ben, do you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. I agree. I think, like what Cam said, it's extremely difficult. I'd be happy with either of them, but Alisson does just slightly edge it for me. So I think Alisson's a good choice.
Yeah, so I'm just going to, people can see the screen. That's what I'm going to do. So we have that. And the formation we can always chop and change as we go along. So at right back, I mean, the two that come to mind is Alexander-Arnold versus Walker. Again, where do we lean here, guys? Ben, do you want to take the lead on this one?
Yeah, for me, Alexander-Arnold. I think just with that, creative outlet from right back. Again, I actually think this is probably one of the other most difficult ones because I think Walker's a tremendous athlete, but I think, maybe I'm a little bit age biased with liking how young Alexander-Arnold is as well. But I think I'd put forward Alexander-Arnold there. And as for a similar reason to Alisson in the contribution to that Liverpool team, I think it contributes more than Walker does to City's team.
Yeah. Cam, are we in agreement with Alexander-Arnold? Is that unanimous?
Yeah, I don't think I can disagree or add anything to what Ben said there. I think Alexander-Arnold, I mean, this is basically, if you add Kieran Trippier into the fight there, it's the fight for right back for England at the moment, which I think just illustrates the depth, really, there. You've got two fantastic players in this game alone, and then someone as well playing for Atletico Madrid. But yeah, Alexander-Arnold, I think, makes the most sense, definitely.
Alrighty, so then should we move to the centre backs? Now this is a tricky one because again, we're going to try do things with the players we have available tomorrow. So no Virgil van Dijk, even though we'd think he'd be there. So where do we go with this, guys? Does Joe Gomez, is he a lock for this regardless? And then do we pick up a City defender? Is that where we're most likely to go?
Well, I've seen Matip is back for tomorrow's game.
Okay.
And I think Matip, I mean, the whole thing with Liverpool Van Dijk is obviously the assured defender when he's playing. Joel Matip, I think, has been a fantastic defender at his time at Liverpool. I just think Klopp has preferred on many occasions Joe Gomez. I think he has been the player that I think he does bring some quality going forward as well, slightly more than Matip does. But Matip is a solid centre-back. So I have gone for Joel Matip. And particularly form as well. I think, yes, he's not played a lot of games recently, but I think Matip is better than Joe Gomez. And I think I've put Aymeric Laporte as well, just out of the fact that really we needed. I don't think Williams, obviously he's been doing very well for Liverpool recently, but I don't think he is the best fit for, if you say, combined 11. And I think Aymeric Laporte, just out of his record in the Premier League, the fact he has been good, really only one of the few decent centre-backs City have had in recent years, I would put him in there as well. So Matip and Laporte, centre-back for me.
Yeah. Ben, what do we think of the centre-back pairing of this combined team?
Yeah, for me, it was Laporte's got to be a lock in there. I think you look at how City performed without him. I think that's definitely got to be in there. And then similar to probably how Liverpool actually select their centre backs, I'd be happy with either Matip or Joe Gomez as the other one. I think Laporte was the one I really do think he's a really, really good centre back, and it's just injury troubles I think for him so far rather than poor performances. So yeah, I'd be happy with Laporte and Matip as well.
Alrighty, I'll just put that in. Left back, I'm assuming this one won't take long. Andy Robertson, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Alrighty, well, not much argument there. Now, the midfield, I've just, in default, just made a 4-2-3-1. We can always make it a 4-3-3, depending on, the midfield combinations we pick. But where do we go for this one? Central midfield. I'll make it easy. I'll just kind of put in some names of the people who could be locks, and then you guys kind of just say yes or no, I guess, or something like that, and maybe explain them. Jordan Henderson, does he automatically make this team?
Yeah, absolutely, and captain as well. Definitely, just the leadership that he brings. He's a very capable midfielder, fantastic as a holding midfielder, but also in terms of the leadership as well. And I think that he's very much the reason. I think part of the reason Liverpool have come on so far is because his leadership on the pitch has really allowed Liverpool to perform. So I think no doubt there whatsoever.
Right. So Ben, I saw you nodding. So you agree with the Henderson pick?
Yeah, 100%.
Alrighty. So here's an I mean, Kevin De Bruyne has got to be in there, I'm guessing as well.
Yeah, definitely. He was the one, potentially the league's best player. I know, maybe it hasn't quite been exactly the same this season, but it's the same with City as a whole. So I think someone with tremendous ability, again, up there with some of the best passes that I think this country's ever seen. So yeah, definitely a lock in there alongside Jordan Henderson.
So I guess it leaves us with the other one. I mean, I'll list the names off, and then you guys sort of see which one you kind of land on. But on the Liverpool side, you obviously have Wijnaldum, James Milner, Naby Keita, Fabinho. I'm guessing Fabinho's fit for tomorrow. I'm not sure. I need to double check on this one. I don't think he is actually. So maybe that makes it easier. Maybe that makes it harder. Thiago is sidelined as well, which could be a huge loss for them. I know those two players would have a chance normally of making it. And then in terms of Man City, you got Gundogan, Phil Foden, obviously as well. Fernandinho, I think, is fit as well. So where do you guys land with this third midfielder? Where do we want to go with this?
I've just read that Fernandinho is supposed to be out at this point.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's the thing. A lot of the players who I would have put into Fernandinho, Thiago. I mean, I would have put Thiago in.
Yeah,
if he was fit.
I mean, it's not a hard and fast rule. We can just put him in if there is no other standout option. Ben, any thoughts on? I mean, it is both midfields are pretty depleted at the moment. It's fair to say.
Yeah, I'd say if. Oh.
No, I mean, yeah. I mean,
I don't know. We all trying to speak at once.
Go for it.
I was just going to say, if Thiago was there, I put him in. I've put Naby Keita in. I think his form this year has been very good. Tough between him and Wijnaldum, I think. I would just put Naby Keita in, just on recent form. But I think that's really the only indicator to separate the rest of the people in there. Because there's a lot of good quality players.
Yeah, fair enough. Apologies for the speaker disruption earlier on. Ben, any that's all right, Cam's on me. Ben, any thoughts on this third midfielder?
Yeah, I think I agree with Cam. If he was fit, Thiago would be in there straight away for me. But I think again it would be between Wijnaldum and Keita. I think when you look at a midfield that, for balance reasons, has De Bruyne and Henderson, you probably need the more athletic cog in the midfield. So I think Keita's performance is really so far this season should reflect that in the lineup. So I agree.
Yeah, that looks like a handy midfield. I'm just going to adjust it there, and that looks like a very fun midfield three. And then going forward, is Raheem Sterling? Well, I mean, it's a tough one, isn't it? Because you have Mane, Jota, Salah, Firmino on one side, and then on the other, Sterling, Gabriel Jesus, Ferran Torres. There's a fair few names. So where do we sort of go? I mean, Sadio Mane and Mo Salah, are they both locks for this? Yeah. I see nodding. Yes.
I think they've got to be in there. Tremendous athletes, tremendous players, and have possibly the highest level of consistency that you can actually attain in football at the moment. So I think they've definitely got to be in there. I think this third choice is difficult if we're going off the players who are fit. So yeah, obviously Jota been in great form, so I would be tempted to go for that as a front three. But then again, you're leaving out Raheem Sterling, Gabriel Jesus. Maybe he's not quite at the same level, but he did score a good goal against Olympiacos. So the third one's a tricky one.
Yeah, Cam, go for it. Any thoughts?
off recent form, I don't think any of the City players would get in, just because they haven't looked like a convincing scoring unit this season. So, and obviously with Aguero out as well, again, it'd be very difficult to make the case for Aguero not to be in if he was fit. So they've not really been convincing. So I don't think you could put any of the City players in that front three. I have gone and I think I've made quite a big kind of stab at the situation that Jurgen Klopp is facing at the moment. I have gone for Diogo Jota, just on the back of his recent form, and I think the fact he's starting to settle into that Liverpool team at the moment. I think obviously people forget with Firmino that Firmino does a lot off the ball. He's not a goal scorer. He does a lot off the ball for Liverpool that makes him such a crucial cog in that front three, and that's why it's really difficult. But I think just off the recent form, and I think we're starting to see Jota really settle into that front three. And so that's why I think he just edges it for me. But I think that really illustrates the problem that Jurgen Klopp's got for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Who does he pick? Go on recent form, or does he go on that? It's just how vital Firmino is off the ball.
Yeah, absolutely. It underlines that point. So I mean, it sounds it's a tough one, isn't it? It does. I hate to press us all into making a decision. We sort of, I mean, the only reason I haven't put Salah's name in yet because I thought they're all interchangeable, I guess. Salah, Jota, Mane. But is that the front three we ultimately sort of land on? I mean, on form, Jota versus Sterling, you'd have to say Jota, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think form wise, that's got to be the decision. And I think but yeah, I think it's really interesting what Cam said. I think it is going to be such a difficult decision for Jurgen Klopp tomorrow. Do you go with what you've known for the past couple of years, or do you go with the almost shiny trophy who's been bagging you the goals recently? So it'll be interesting. But there's a heavy Liverpool lineup there. Not many Manchester City players, but that reflects the start to the league and the form both teams have been in.
Yeah, I would agree. I just want to say there was no bias from myself. I didn't push any Liverpool agenda on this, but it's turned out that way, so it's not my fault. So there we go. That's sort of the combined 11, which now nicely sort of brings us on to predictions for tomorrow. What do we reckon, kind of score predictions wise, Cam? Just briefly, who do you think will come out victorious on Sunday evening?
Definitely a Liverpool win. I am gonna go 3-1 Liverpool.
Okay, Ben.
Similar to Cam, I'm gonna go 3-2. I think there will just be too much to exploit for City with the defense, but not enough for the win. So I think Liverpool will get the win.
There we go. There's the predictions for Sunday. I'll just quickly bring up the other games, and here's what 5:38 have sort of got lined up. I mean, any other games stand out from this, from the remaining ones that we've got? Cam, any games on this roster? I mean, we spoke about West Brom Spurs. Certainly, they'll be hoping to win that one. But any other ones?
I think tomorrow it's going to be an interesting one, Leicester Wolves, because they've been two sides very in form at the moment. Wolves have made their best start to, I think, in about 30, 40 years. Leicester have looked very convincing so far this season. So I think it's going to be interesting to see. I think if Leicester are going to keep up this rich vein of form they're in at the moment, I think that's a must win for them. Of course, West Brom, Tottenham as well. Tottenham have a real opportunity if Liverpool do slip up tomorrow to put themselves top. And I think that's going to be a big mentality test because they have the quality, but do they have the mentality? And we saw West Brom against Chelsea. They absolutely were clinical in punishing every mistake that Chelsea made that day. So I think that's going to be two definitely good games to watch tomorrow, definitely.
Yeah, Ben, are those sort of the games you're looking at as well now that I guess the stress of watching United's now done for the weekend? Are those sort of the games other than the one we've just talked about, City, Liverpool, are those the games you're looking forward to?
Yeah. From a neutral perspective, I'm really looking forward to tomorrow's fixtures. Pretty much just echoing what Cam said there. Yeah, I think this is how we measure Tottenham. I think this is how we're going to see where they've come from, the difference of Pochettino, Mourinho, and potentially how well they're going to do this season. Arsenal, Aston Villa, that will be a interesting game. We know Aston Villa beat Liverpool. We know they can cause problems, particularly Jack Grealish. And this Arsenal defence that's been stable so far, it's going to come up against very fresh looking new Aston Villa attack. So that will be an interesting game as well. But yeah, looking forward to all of these fixtures, and obviously the big one, City, Liverpool, headlining them.
Yeah, it should be a very good weekend as we can hope, and certainly if we go off. I mean, for those those of the Crystal Palace fans who may be watching the stream, I have no idea how many we attract on these, but Palace did win 4-1 away at Leeds. I mean, at home at Leeds rather. So that is quite an impressive result against a Leeds side that was heavily backed to probably get the 3 points. So big result there. Cam, I mean, before we head off, how's Portsmouth going?
We are literally in the final minute. It's still 2-2. Portsmouth, I think, have just won a corner. We're literally going to be the last kick of the game. Obviously, again, we started the game so well. Obviously, Ipswich equalised. Oliver Norwood scored in the 66th minute. So, again, if we can score this, takes us through to the second round. But this really is going to be the last opportunity of the game. I can't see who is taking the corner, which is slightly annoying. I think it is Johnson, and it's gone wide. Yeah, missed header from Tom Naylor, wide of the post. So it's finished 2-2 at Portman Road. So I'm assuming, I think they've kept replays for this season. So I'm assuming that will be a replay at Fratton Park sometime in the near future.
I do think they kept replays. I think it's up to a certain point do they stop doing them, but I think for the early stages,
I think we might be going to extra time.
Oh wow! Oh, well, that's going to be
so. This tie isn't. It doesn't look like they're not going down the tunnel. So it's either. I think we are going to extra time, possibly even straight to penalties.
Yeah, I'm looking at. I've just had a Google. They've scrapped replays this season because obviously the football calendar is very congested with obviously the pandemic's effects on it. So it looks like you'll have another half hour to kind of.
I will have a very fun meeting coming up. Just sat one eye on the schedule, one eye on the Portsmouth game.
Absolutely. And with that, we do have to go as it is 5 and we have to dash to the schedule launch. So my thanks as always, Cam Hall. It's a great pleasure to have you on. Same with Ben Parkinson. Thank you both for joining me. Hope that was a lot of fun. And look, we'll be back with our midweek show. I can't remember. I think it's Raw Sport Interviews, which reminds me I have a bit of preparation to do, but yes, we'll be back with that, and then Quaran-Stream next week. Probably look at England's results, and I want to do some really early Premier League awards, really really early ones, which should be a lot of fun. And until then, we will see you for the next broadcast. So thank you for joining us, and have a lovely weekend.